Welcome to Fun Facts Daily, your source for just the good stuff. Monday through Friday, we're bringing fun facts and news you can use, all carefully curated to uplift and inform. So give yourself a break, relax, and learn something awesome in just a few minutes every day. Hi everyone, I'm Kyle Wood. Today we'll be learning all about cars, those amazing machines that take us to work, school, and on incredible adventures. But before we get into the facts, let's warm up our brains with a little challenge to see if you can tell fact from fiction. Consider this. There's an old legend that's been floating around for decades about someone who invented a car that could run on water instead of gasoline. They say the technology was so revolutionary that powerful oil companies bought the patents and made the invention disappear to protect their profits. What do you think? Could such an amazing technology really be suppressed? We'll find out at the end of the episode. Now for your word of the day. Our word for today is chauffeur. C-H-A-U-F-F-E-U-R. A chauffeur is a person employed to drive a private or hired car. We usually picture a chauffeur as a professionally dressed driver in a fancy limousine, but the word's origin tells a much different story about the earliest days of the automobile. The word chauffeur comes to us directly from French, where it literally means stoker. A stoker is someone who tends a fire, like the kind used to power a steam engine. The very first self-propelled vehicles weren't powered by gasoline, but by steam. These early automobiles required a driver who also had to act as a mechanic and had to shovel coal or wood into a boiler to create steam pressure. This job was hot, dirty, and demanding, so the driver was called the stoker, or in French, the chauffeur. As gasoline engines replaced steam, the job changed and got a whole lot cleaner, but the name stayed the same. Time for your daily high five, our top 5 fun facts about cars. Number 1. The world's first road trip was taken by a brave woman who didn't even have a driver's license. In 1886, German inventor Bertha Benz patented his motor wagon, which is widely considered to be the first true automobile powered by an internal combustion engine. But people were skeptical of this noisy, rattling, horseless carriage, and he hadn't sold any. His wife, Bertha Benz, believed in his invention, though, and she knew it needed some good publicity. So, in August of 1888, without telling her husband, she took her 2 sons and drove the motor wagon on a 66-mile journey to visit her mother, effectively embarking on the world's first long-distance road trip. The journey was anything but easy. Since there were no gas stations, Bertha had to buy petroleum solvent from a pharmacy to use as fuel. She used her hat pin to clean a clogged fuel line and even had to use her garter to insulate a wire. But her groundbreaking trip proved that the automobile was a viable mode of transportation, and the publicity she generated helped launch the automotive industry. Bertha Benz wasn't just a passenger in history, she was in the driver's seat. Number 2. There are more than 1.4 billion cars in the world, enough to stretch to the moon and back multiple times. It's hard to imagine a world without cars, and the numbers prove just how essential they've become. Recent estimates say the global car fleet has surpassed 1.4 billion vehicles. To put that in perspective, if you were to line up all those cars bumper to bumper, the line would stretch over 4 million miles. That's long enough to circle the Earth more than 160 times or travel to the moon and back 8 times. This massive number also highlights the global nature of the auto industry. While the United States has one of the highest rates of car ownership per person, China has the largest total number of cars of any country. The world's car population continues to grow each year with tens of millions of new vehicles rolling off assembly lines annually. It's a staggering reminder of how these machines have reshaped our planet and our societies in just over a century. Number 3. Electric cars were surprisingly popular over a century ago, long before gasoline became king of the road. That's right, electric vehicles aren't a new invention. They were a common sight in the late 1890s and early 1900s. In fact, around the year 1900, about a third of all cars on the road were electric. These early EVs were praised for being quiet, clean, and incredibly easy to operate. They didn't produce any smelly exhaust, and most importantly, they didn't require a difficult and often dangerous hand crank to start, which was a major drawback of early gasoline cars. So, what happened? The tide turned against electric cars for a few key reasons. In 1912, the electric starter was invented, making gasoline cars much easier to use. Around the same time, the discovery of vast crude oil reserves made gasoline cheap and widely available. At the same time, Henry Ford's mass-produced Model T made gasoline-powered cars significantly more affordable than their electric counterparts. With their limited range and lack of widespread electricity for recharging, electric cars faded away as the nation built a network of roads and gas stations. It's fascinating to see the car coming full circle as more EVs hit the road due to modern technology solving the challenges that caused electric cars to disappear nearly a century ago. And number 4. The famous new car smell is actually the scent of dozens of chemicals releasing into the air. Almost everyone recognizes the unique scent of a brand new car interior. It's often associated with happiness and excitement, but what you're actually smelling is a chemical cocktail. The scent is the result of a process called off-gassing, where various materials used inside the car release volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, into the cabin. These compounds come from plastics, adhesives, vinyl, and fabrics used to make the dashboard, seats, and carpeting. The specific blend of about 50 to 60 different VOCs is what creates the signature smell. Because different manufacturers use different materials and processes, the new car smell can vary slightly from one brand to another. While the scent is generally harmless in the short term, it's a good idea to keep your new car well ventilated for the first few months, as the concentration of these chemicals is at its highest. And our 5th and final fun fact for today: the world's first speeding ticket was issued for a driver going 8 miles an hour. Early automobiles were extremely slow by today's standards. They never got anywhere near the 65 or 75 mile an hour speed limits we're used to on the highway today. In 1896, a man named Walter Arnold from Kent, England, was pulled over for speeding through town. His blistering speed, a heart-pounding 8 miles per hour. The problem was the legal speed limit at that time was only 2 miles per hour. That's a slower pace than the average person will walk casually. To make matters worse for Mr. Arnold, the law at the time also required that all self-propelled vehicles were preceded by a person walking ahead of them waving a red flag to warn pedestrians and horse-drawn carriages. Mr. Arnold had failed to do this, leading to his historic citation. He was eventually fined 1 shilling for the crime. But it earned him a place in the history books and a charming story that illustrates just how much our perception of speed has changed in the automotive age. Now for some news you can use. Knowing how to safely jumpstart a car is a skill every driver should have. If your car battery dies, you'll need another car and a set of jumper cables. First, park the working car nose to nose with the one that's not working, but don't let them touch, and turn both cars completely off. Now, follow this specific order to connect the cables. which you can remember as red to dead, red to good, black to ground. First, connect a red clamp to the positive terminal of the dead battery. Then connect the other red clamp to the positive terminal of the good battery. Next, connect a black clamp to the negative terminal of the good battery. Finally, connect the last black clamp to an unpainted metal surface on the car with the dead battery, like a bolt on the engine block, away from the battery itself. This grounds the circuit and prevents dangerous sparks. Start the working car, let it run a few minutes, and then try to start the dead car. Once the formerly dead car is running, you're not quite done yet. The next step is to disconnect the jumper cables in the exact reverse order that you attached them. Remove the black clamp from the grounded metal surface, then the black clamp from the good battery, followed by the red clamp from the good battery, and finally the red clamp from the car you just started. To help your battery recover, keep your car's engine running and ideally drive it for at least 15 to 20 minutes. This gives the alternator enough time to put a solid charge back into the battery so it'll start up again next time. Now for the moment you've been waiting for. At the beginning of the episode, I asked if the story of a suppressed water-powered car was fact or fiction. Well, it sounds great and it's fueled conspiracy theories for decades, but it's a fallacy. Science tells us this just doesn't work based on fundamental laws of physics, specifically the law of conservation of energy. Water itself, H2O, is not a fuel. It's actually the exhaust product of burning hydrogen. To get energy from water, you first have to split it into hydrogen and oxygen through a process called electrolysis. The problem is that it takes more energy to split the water molecules than you get back from burning the hydrogen you produce. So, a car using its own power to create its own fuel from water just doesn't work. The most famous proponent of the water fuel cell was an American inventor named Stanley Meyer, who claimed in the 1980s and 90s that he had converted a dune buggy to run on water. But his claims were never proven in a scientifically controlled setting, and in 1996, an Ohio court ruled that his invention was fraudulent. He was ordered to repay his investors. While hydrogen is a very real and promising clean fuel source for cars, those vehicles use hydrogen that is produced elsewhere and stored in a tank. The dream of filling up your car with a garden hose, unfortunately, remains just that, a dream, but a scientific impossibility. Now, I hope you enjoyed learning a bit about cars with me today, and be sure to tune in every weekday for even more fun facts. Fun Facts Daily is an Airwave Media podcast. It was written, recorded, mixed, and edited by me, Kyle Wood. Thanks for sharing a part of your day with me. Be sure to follow Fun Facts Daily on your favorite podcast app so you can keep the good stuff coming your way every day. And if you like the show, please do me a favor and leave a kind rating, review, or just tell your friends about it.